Hello, Falcha. So I've just finished recording our guided journey for the October rewards, and because of lockdown and COVID and all sorts of other bullshit, I haven't been able to get to a site visit for October. So what I thought I'd do today is a little virtual site visit, and I'm going to show you how to connect to any site really in Ireland. You can explore your ancestral territories this way, which is something that I don't think enough people really take advantage of. You know, if you know where your family has come from in Ireland, then it's definitely worth doing this process to look it up. And you might not have family in Ireland. You might not know where they come from. That's okay too. You might just be drawn to a particular part of Ireland or a particular site and want to connect to it. So if you're not in Ireland, or if you're in Ireland and on lockdown like we are, this is how you can connect in that way. And we're going to use two sites primarily, archaeology.ie and Google Maps, because Google is the boss of everything, obviously. So what we're looking for is we go to archaeology.ie, and this is the National Monument Service. So there's a lot on this website to explore if you want to dig into that. Definitely, that is an interesting way to pass an afternoon or an evening. But we're going to look here at the Archaeological Survey of Ireland. And what we're looking for is the SMR database or the Historic Environment Viewer. Now, if you've seen me at site visits before, you know that this is something that I do fairly regularly. So you just click to accept the conditions. And let's have a look at the Hill of Ward. I'm not sure. Sometimes, no. Sometimes you have to kind of figure out the database is not very good for it's not going to be under. Let's try Ward itself. Ward in County Meath. New. Okay, so what we need to do is go back home and look. Zoom in. I'm going to go to Meath. Okay, do you know what? A better way to do this. This is a good one because like I could drive to this place, but finding it on the map, I'm not great at. So we're going to go to Google Maps here. And an easier way to do it is to start here, type in the Hill of Ward. And the reason that I'm looking at this site is because we are at Samhain and Wardstown, County Meath. All right, so let's try that. Wardstown. Leinster. There we go. See what I mean? The database is not great. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. So you can see Tlachtga is right here. This is Wardstown, Leinster. If I zoom out a little bit more. Yeah, so the reason that I am choosing this one is because this time last year I was part of the what's now called the Puka Festival up at Tlachtga, and I'm not sure why there's like an airport there. I don't think there's an airport there. Maybe there's like a landing strip in somebody's field or something weird. But yeah, there is a big fire lighting ceremony that has been happening, and I'm a little bit sad that we couldn't go there. But you can see this is what we're looking at here, the hill. Okay. quite a few monuments on it. So what we do is we click on these red dots and we see what comes up. So settlement cluster. These are interesting, but we don't have to stay with them. The field system. Over here. There's a font. It's probably in a church. You can see here it's one of 3. So yeah, church with a font and a graveyard. I didn't even know they were there. So Chapel of Ease in Athboy Parish. Rectangular graveyard. Okay. Not of huge interest to us. I do tend to kind of circle around and see what else is around. There's a well here, located on the base of the Hill of Ward or Tlachtga. I did not know that that well was there. So it's still, I mean, this is the height above sea level. You can see that the colors change. Enclosure. See, they're called wraps. A mound. Enclosure. So this indicates that obviously there was settlement around Tlachtga. So when we get onto the hill itself, there's an enclosure as well. A crop mark of a circular enclosure. And this is the kind of thing that you would just never see. Well, I would never see. Maybe a professional archaeologist would be able to see it, but it would be very difficult to see from the ground. So there is an attached image from Google Earth, which we can open up. There you go. You can see this crop mark, this circle. So this is an enclosure. And if you were in this field here, it would just be incredibly difficult to try and make that out. So, yeah, just want to make sure I wasn't closing that down. And we'll go up here and just see what's up here on the edges. A ring ditch. A field system. Another field system. Detected by a remote sensing survey. Oh no, this is the ring ditch and the field system beside each other, sorry. 2 small enclosures on either side of an east-west field boundary ditch, maybe settlement enclosures or smaller fields. So either domestic or agricultural activity is indicated here, but then there's a linear earthwork. Now that's interesting. 2 broad low-profile banks extend east-west. So there is a linear earthwork at Rathcroghan. There is one at Dunallagna in Kildare. There is one at Tara, definitely. Not sure about Navan Fort. Not 100% sure on that up in Ulster. But the banks are interpreted as providing an initial defence across the southeast end of the spur on the easiest approach to the surviving earthwork. So they could be defensive or they could be ceremonial. The archaeologists have decided that they're defensive because that's the easiest way to get onto the Hill of Ward. But I'm going to say the jury's out. My jury is out on that, whether they might be ritualistic. So there's a ring fort or a wrap. Small enclosure defined by a single ditch feature. Archaeological excavation in Trench 3 during 2014 at the south edge of the visible earthwork recorded a section of rock cut ditch of this wrap. A cattle bone from the primary fill produced a C14 date in the 5th century AD, so from the 400s, and an inhumation of a 2 to 3 month old child from an upper fill in a rudimentary slab-lined grave has a C14 date. This is carbon dating, by the way, in the same century. So there was a 2 to 3 month old child buried. And this is the excavation that my friend and colleague Steve Davis was going to say in charge of. I'm not sure if he was completely in charge of the whole project, but he was definitely one of them. During 2015, Trench 5 was placed at the interface of this monument with the third bank and of the visible earthwork, and demonstrated that the rock cut ditch of this rath was truncated by that of the larger enclosure. So there is an excavations report if you want to go and look that up. So let us just open this and just keep it there for future reference. So you can see that there's all sorts of pretty fascinating information that is just contained in these little enclosures. So here's the ceremonial enclosure, located towards the top of the south-facing slope on the broad hill of Ward or Tlachtga. The visible monument overlies a large subcircular enclosure defined by three closely spaced fosse features, which was identified in a remote sensing survey. The three fosses sweeping from east to south appear to terminate at south, perhaps at an original entrance, although it is also 15 metres east of a modern installation which may have disturbed their line. That's Steve Davis right there. Sorry. Archaeological excavation in Trench 2 during 2014 northwest of the visible monument and across the innermost fosse of the ceremonial enclosure recorded a rock cut ditch, a piece of cattle bone from the top of the fill produced a 4th century BC. So this is, I'm presuming that's the same one, the rock cut ditch that we just looked at. During 2015, it had been recut, separated from the central from the inner U-shaped fosse, which was recut once. So what this indicates is that this whole recutting thing indicates that there are multiple layers of use within this. So Tlachtga was not just a big deal at one point in history. It was used and reused and rebuilt over time. So that's really important archaeologically and also, I think, spiritually as well. So lines of stake holes and post holes at the edges of this ditch suggest the presence of post and wattle walls, perhaps to retain earthen banks. Small deposits of human remains in the ditches could be votary, and animal bones occur throughout the ditch deposits. So votive offerings here would be basically sacrificial offerings. Small deposits of human remains in the ditches could be sacrificial, and human and animal bones. There was a lot found, and this is maybe off record, but I was told there was a lot found that that would definitely indicate the whole human sacrifice thing was happening at Tlachtga at least one point in history, but probably multiple points. And this very much concurs with journey work that I've done there and priest work that I've been called in to do there, because there is, and this is very much UPG, you won't find this on archaeology.ie, there is very much something there that is primordial even, that myself, Gemma McGowan, who would be a priestess of the area, called me in a couple of years ago to help deal with something that was there. And I believe that this is all connected. I think that our ancestors knew that something very much older and darker was there. I believe that may be why Tlachtga was built or used. I think that it was probably there before humans were, by my sense of things, and that the place maybe it was attracted to the place because it was already sacred. I mean, this is chicken and an egg scenario. I don't know, but certainly that a lot of the ritual and ceremonial activity there would have taken into account that this entity is in residence there and would have kept it locked down. And that was the problem, that it was coming loose, basically. So it had been locked down for a long time and was coming loose. So that was the work that we had to do there. So that was before the Hill of Words festival took off in any way, keeping things safe. So when I was asked to be a part of it, of the more commercial and more popular festival last year, the role that I asked for was guardianship, because I wanted to make sure that everybody was safe. So everybody was like, "Oh, why weren't you the Mórrígan?" I was like, "Yeah, I didn't want to be representing the Mórrígan there. I had other work to do." So that was a thing. Yeah, so the upper level of each stitch is associated with metal surfaces, but carbon C14 determinations for the base of the Foss deposits are 1100 BC. So that's BCE. That's how old. That's at least how old we're dealing with here. So that would be at least early Bronze Age. No, before that. Way before that. That would be. Oh, I've got my timelines all confused. I can't work backwards. Didn't I do a blog post on timelines? Let me just check that up. It's early on a Sunday morning here as I record this. So I'm going to my own blog. I'm pretty sure I did a blog post about timelines. There we go. Guide to faces and dates. It's not that I don't know this stuff. My memory just lets me down sometimes. So there is a downloadable if you want to. So yeah, I was right actually. Middle Bronze Age. So we have Bronze Age dating at least. Yeah, so you can download that there if you want to. That is at loraobrien.ie/Irish-history. So useful little thing. This is the site Excavations, which I'll put links to these below in the post, okay, and you can have a look through them. So let us just go to Google Maps really quickly. So you can see that from just this pretty cursory examination, you can actually get quite a lot of information. But we want to be looking at the satellite version here. And you can see here we are. We're going to zoom in as close as we can. Rat. Did I look at all these? Yeah. Oh, actually, I didn't before we even get there. This final one here, the Ringfort Rath. This national monument is located on the summit of the broad hill of Tara, or Tlachtga, which is so called as it is the mythical burial place of Tlachtga, the daughter of Mórrígan, a powerful druid. It was also an Éineacht site, or meeting place, and its significance extended into the Middle Ages. Rory O'Connor, the last High King of Ireland, I have a problem with that whole High King thing, but we'll leave that for another day, presided over an assembly here in AD 1168, so Common Era 1168, and in 1172, Tiernan O'Rourke, King of Breffna, was murdered here by Hugh de Lacy, Earl of Meath, Anglo-Normans. The hill can be considered one of the royal centres. So this is the Norman culture fighting with the Gaelic culture, basically, is what's going on there. The hill can be considered one of the royal centres of Meath and is at the centre of a relict landscape that can only be recorded through remote sensing techniques and excavation. The surviving visible monument is difficult to classify as but is most likely to be a multivalent ring fort. So multivalent means multiple concentric rings, one inside the other. The central mound of which was probably complicated, or was probably has a complicated sequence of deposits. So again, the complicated sequence of deposits would be the multiple layers of occupation. Maybe I should have read this first. I should have got here first. But anyway, doesn't matter. So complicated sequence of deposits. Do you remember where it was saying that the ditches were kind of cutting into each other? That means that there were those multiple layers of occupation. And you'll see that at a lot of Irish sites. Monument is accessible through a stile at the crossroads, and there is parking for about 2 cars at the nearby water tanks. The grass-covered visible remains consist of a circular platform with a quarry trench dug through it from north to the centre and east. The platform is defined by a scarp with an external fosse or berm, outside of which are 4 banks with associated fosses. The visible profile of the banks and fosses are destroyed northeast and southeast, and badly interrupted at other points. There is an apparent entrance through 3 of the outer banks at north-northeast, but a remote sensing survey suggests that the entrance is at the east or east-southeast. This survey also recorded an earlier triple ditch ceremonial enclosure beneath the visible monument and extending beyond it to the southwest. The survey also recovered evidence of a small enclosure to the south defined by a ditch feature, which has an entrance at the east. This is probably a small rath and maybe slightly earlier than the surviving visible monument, as the outmost perimeter of the latter appears to cut it. And again, that's another example of the multiple layers of occupation. And it's also similar to what's happening at Rathcroghan or Croghan, where there is a small rath with an eastern entrance beside the bigger and later rath, and the bigger one kind of cuts into the smaller one. So these similar patterns of occupation across various royal sites are always worth noting and very interesting when you consider, the different territories and provinces and everything that was going on. Linear earthworks, which we saw earlier, extending east from the third bank, appear to cut through the fourth bank and may represent a road that connects with a road associated with the fields further east. Archaeological excavation in Trench 1 across the outermost bank at the north revealed the inner ditch to be a rock cut, and a fox tooth from it produced a C14 date in the 5th century AD, so the 400s Common Era. The outer ditch was wider and shallower. A test pit at the centre of the monument uncovered the upper levels of what is probably a backfilled quarry pit over stratified hearths. An oak post from the hearths produced a date between 11th and 13th centuries, so 1000s to 1200s Common Era. During 2015, Trench 5 was placed at the interface of the third bank of this monument with the small rath to the south, demonstrated that the rock-cut ditch of the visible monument truncated that of the smaller enclosure. Its uniform fills were probably bank collapse. A hearth at the upper level produced crucible fragments with evidence of silver, lead, and copper alloy working. So these enclosures are probably, they were domestic, so people lived here and were carrying on silver, lead, and copper alloy working. So there was precious metal working happening at this site. So whether that was domestic or industrial or spiritual is obviously up for debate. I mean, given everything else that's going on at the site, I'd say there was probably an element of the spiritual to it, at least. Radiocarbon determinations for samples from both ditches fall within the range of 390 to 540 AD or Common Era. And then for summaries of the excavation, that is the link that I will give you for the excavation summary. So that is all pretty fucking fascinating, I think. Anyway, hopefully you do as well. But yeah, we're just going to have a quick look here at Google Maps. And just make sure, where's that road? I think we're at a slightly different angle here. I don't know why these maps are not aligned north. This is the water tank. They said that there was parking available at these 2 water tanks here. What you have here, there is a laneway that goes up here. So this is down towards Wardstown, County Meath, which is the closest village. So when we were doing the festival, there was the procession that came up here. These 2 water tanks are here. There's another crossroads here. There's also parking over here. Just make sure you don't block any gates or anything like that, if you are coming to it, obviously. So this part here is where the stile is, and you can see there's a path that's been cut in. That's usually just mowed grass. That's been cut in. And the multi-vallet ring fort with many broken entrances, that is what we're looking at here. So they reckon, and that's interesting actually, because every time that I visited, it would be from here basically. I would have to go around. I never go up that way. I always go over here. That thing that I mentioned lives along here somewhere. No, wait, it's more further into the corner. It's more here. So when we were doing the festival, it was basically taking place over here. It was the farm that we were walking up through. So this is where you were coming in for the farm. You would walk up this laneway and into this field, and the actual fire and festival and everything was taking place over here, because obviously you can't do it on the hill itself. Well, hopefully that's obvious. So where I was stationed was right here, because this was what I was guarding against, basically, over here, stopping people getting net. So that is what's going on at the site, and I just want to show you a, let me just drag us over here so that you can see the style. And as you can see, now I know that Tlachtga is, so these are the water tanks here. This is the crossroads. So there is parking down here. Don't block the gates. There's some parking over here. You can see Athboy. I was calling it Wardstown. My apologies. Athboy is the nearest village. I always get names mixed up. And this is the stile. And you can just see it's very unassuming, but that is how you enter that field. So I do have a site visit from there, and I believe there is a site report. So I'm going to pull that out and put it into the $15 video bonus. I know that I did the video for the $10 photo rewards, but I just wanted everybody to have access. I know we're not the only ones in the world who are locked down or under quarantine or, you know, otherwise homebound currently, not by any means. And I just wanted to show you that there are ways and means of studying, researching, connecting, and, you know, combining this with journeys, with guided journeys. If there is no way that you can get to visit these sites in person, then, you know, the site visits that we're doing. And by the way, if there's, I mean, once all this is over, if there are particular sites that you would like us to go and visit, please make sure and let me know. I kind of choose randomly each month, depending on what suits me or what I feel drawn to. And if you're happy with that, that's fine. But I'm always up for suggestions as well, and I will do my absolute best to get to the places that people specifically want to see. So we're going to leave it there, and I hope that this has been of use to you. Like I said, I will put all the links below and I will dig up the site report from Tlachtga. And I think I have a story video about Tlachtga as well, the goddess of the hill. So I'll put them in the $15 rewards too. So hopefully that's been of use to you, and apologies for not being able to get feet on the ground this month. I've exhausted my local possibilities in the last lockdown, and everything that's left is pretty boring. So I was racking my brains to try and find something that would be of interest and also practically useful to you for connection, which is, I think what you're on my Patreon for, to connect to these sites. So mind yourselves, slán go fóill, and I will see you next month, hopefully in happier times. Slán.